China has made yet another play for Australian resources, this time the uranium explorer Energy Metals. The company's directors are recommending that shareholders accept the $120 million takeover bid. While the rest of the world has a healthy appetite for Australian yellowcake, industry advocates are frustrated that nuclear is still ignored in Australia's energy equation. Neil Woolridge reports.
For decades, nuclear power has ignited strong emotions in Australia.
When do we want it? Now!
But overseas, at least, the tide is turning. It accounts for 15% of the world's energy generation, with France getting 80% of its power from nuclear. However, while Australia has the world's largest uranium reserves, policymakers appear unwilling to contemplate nuclear power.
In allowing coal to be demonised as a dirty fuel and barring any consideration of nuclear energy as an option, our policymakers may be shaping an energy future disproportionately dependent upon technologies which may compromise the reliability, the productivity and low cost of our current electricity system.
Ziggy Switkowski chairs the Australian Nuclear Science and Technology Organisation. Until recently, ANSTO believed Australia's first nuclear power plant was at least 15 years away. But Dr Switkowski says Egypt is planning to start its first reactor in 8 years, and Australia should aim for one by 2020.
No economy of Australia's size or larger is without nuclear power. That's 14 countries. Indeed, Australia now stands alone. We stand alone amongst the world's top 25 economies in excluding consideration of nuclear power in our long-term energy and climate change strategy.
But there is still remarkable resistance to uranium mining and exploration at the state level. And I think for those of you who want to see a nuclear power industry in Australia, I think the point you first have to start off is to remove the bans on uranium mining in Queensland and repeal the Cold War legislation that still exists here in Victoria and in New South Wales, which ban uranium mining.
While Australian governments are avoiding nuclear, China is not. The state-owned Guangdong Nuclear Power Holding Company is making a $120 million bid for the Perth-based Energy Metals. Its biggest shareholder, Jindalee Resources, plans to accept, and Energy Metals' board is recommending other investors do the same. Ziggy Switkowski warns that the apparent policy in Australia of nuclear avoidance will carry an economic cost.
Abundant and inexpensive fossil fuels will be overtaken by new generation technologies such as nuclear power, where we have no presence, and our competitive advantage will disappear.
Safety concerns remain a major impediment to public acceptance of nuclear. However, Professor George Drakoulis says significant incidents at reactors in the United States have been cut by 90% since 1985, and workers' radiation exposure has also gone down significantly.
So it's now down below the level of the public radiation exposure from the environment. It's lower than the level that you get sitting in this room surrounded by concrete and all the bodies around you who are all radioactive.
Professor Drakoulis argues the industry is also safely storing nuclear waste and is competitive with other power sources in terms of the cost of generation.
Nuclear is here similar to gas, similar to wind, similar to hydro, to some extent to biomass, cheaper than solar thermal, and solar photovoltaic is a factor of 8 to 10 higher. That's not even on the graph. But nothing in Australia competes with coal.
Unless, that is, there's a price on carbon. Michael Angwin says the Australian uranium industry has made great strides in achieving more public acceptance. But he concedes the industry itself could do better in shaping opinion by being more open, humble and honest.